Hi guys, this is Robin with Weight Loss Apocalypse. I am so excited to share this video clip with you from a session I did today. This client, this is our fourth session, and she is recovered. So the conversation that we're having in this session is, if you haven't recovered, you're going to notice how different our language is, perception is, experiences with the body. So those of you who are in Patreon will get the entire session. The beginning of it is so good. What I'm sharing with you, however, is a small section from the center of our conversation, which is about how terrible the suffering is and the horror of hell and darkness that people live with when they are suffering from this incredible trap of an eating disorder and obsession with thinness or body image or losing weight or food and all of it. It is actually very personal. We get very emotional in this, and we talk a lot about suicide. I talk about my experience with it, and she actually opens up. It's heartbreaking when you watch it to hear her describe her experience with suicide. And many of you may have come very close or have actually already attempted it or know someone who has committed suicide. So I don't want to make light of it in any way. But for many people, it is often the pathway to recovery. It was for me. So, all right. Well, if you would like to watch the whole entire session, which is so good, you're going to have to become a patron of Weight Loss Apocalypse and join the Patreon account. It is as a monthly donation. The minimum is $5 a month. It supports what I'm doing and the work that I'm writing. If you would like help and need guidance to move forward, I am open and willing to guide you as well. You can contact me through my website link here below, weightlossapocalypse.com, and fill in the information request form or the consult request form, and I'll get a hold of you as soon as possible. So anyways, I hope you enjoy this and appreciate the emotion that went into this part of this conversation. So, all right, enjoy. Than you ever thought possible.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what I was saying when I said, could you have imagined it being this way when you reached out for help? Did you even comprehend that this was what recovery was?
No.
You just knew, I'm in misery. I'm in misery, and I'm clearly not functioning well, and there's problems, and I can see what I'm doing is there's no exit. I'm in a trap. The illusion is that there's an exit. The illusion is that if I continue to diet, I will get out. The illusion is that if I'm thinner, this freedom will happen, right? Don't you agree? That's what you were chasing. This fantasy, the fantasy of thin supremacy, is that you get this freedom. So there's an awareness unconsciously that this freedom does exist. You just attached it to people being thinner.
Right.
That thinnerness brings it. Well, actually, if that's what you believe, you don't get the freedom, you get thinnerness.
Right. And
that's all you think about.
It's just like a thing dangling in front of you that you're always chasing after, and you never really get there.
It's a trap. It's a trap. Mm-hmm. You don't know it. You didn't know it. You were in it for years, not knowing it, until you realized, I am never going to get out. There's no exit. That is really hard. I remember when I realized there's no exit, that's when I decided to commit suicide. Because I couldn't imagine an escape. I wanted to escape, I would do anything to escape, but except for give up the thin supremacy. That's what I didn't consciously see until I was in the process of dying, right? The process of reconciling my life. I realized, oh, well, I'm willing to kill myself because I'm not willing to gain weight. Interesting. So there is an escape. Yeah. There was a moment.
When you're caught up in that, that is your exit. Death is your exit.
I know.
It shouldn't be.
Well,
I've been there, Robin. I tried. I've never told anybody this. 3 years ago, I tried to kill myself, and it didn't work. Nobody knew. So I went out in my car. I listened to the radio for about 10 minutes, and it was cold outside. So here I'm sitting in my car trying to get up the nerve to start the car in my garage. I turned the key, and the car would not start. Because I had been sitting in the cold listening with the radio, I drained the battery down. And then I just felt humiliated that I couldn't even succeed at that. And I came back in the house because my husband wasn't home. And I've never told anybody that.
I understand. In my opinion, the suffering is so bad that it's kind of worth it. So I don't, yeah.
I don't even know what you heard that
I heard it all, and I was just saying to you that I understand it. Like, I've been there. To me, it feels it's worth it. Don't you agree? It's like, well, no shit. If it's that bad and you cannot find a way out, life is bad. That's not okay. You shouldn't live that way. It doesn't. This is why I really feel compassion for people who commit suicide, who actually it works. To me, it's like, well, yeah. You don't just, there's a difference between someone who's committing suicide to revenge, that's narcissism, or because, this is pretty dark and you're in hell. It's like living in hell. Like, yeah, we live in purgatory. That's purgatory. So if that's, what you're doomed to, there's a real relevance to ending it. Now, the crazy thing at this point is you can see, and I saw it too when I was willing at the bottom, when I connected the dots between dying, suicide, and gaining weight, I saw there was an exit that didn't require suicide.
Right.
And I had to sit in that space. I don't know honestly how long I was in this space. This is when I'm like, it had to have been a near death, or it had to have been, I don't know what it was. The out of body, whatever. And realized letting my body be what it was. And surrendering my survival to the body, basically, was no different than killing myself.
Right.
You get that now. And
I get it, all right.
The willingness to just surrender the body is like willingness to die. Because it's no longer my control, it is the body's. But it's the same as pulling the trigger. So why don't I remember in my mind thinking, why don't I just try that first? And that's when I went into life being morbidly obese, and the will to do that. If it means that I am free, in the process of, again, I don't know how this happened. I only have context now, 20 years later, to explain it. So I look back and I can see that basically what I was doing was committing suicide to the small survival Robin. When we look at survival and how we identify who we are, I had attached my body as who I am. And so if my body is perceived as bad, that means I am bad. If my body is perceived as good, that means I am good. And so essentially I had to kill to transcend it, Robin, the survival Robin, which was I had attached to thinness because that's what was that's the common good body. Right? And so I've never returned to that Robin. I've never been, I will never be that Robin again. Right? That's the small ego, pride, shame driven survival Robin, if you want to call it that. So when you come out of that, it's like losing your entire identity. And that's what you have to be willing to do to get out of it. You know, so you and I are talking now in a totally different, like I would assume with your recovery and going through that, you are not the same person.
Right.
At all. Same body.
Not at all.
Same persona. Like you have the same essence. The soul now is alive. No, so your soul becomes alive and the whole ego or survival brain or survival animal in you is dead. We could pull it back up.
I don't want to pull her back.
Right? Why would you do that? Like, holy shit.
Her, never look back.
Because here's what you realize. When you jump off that cliff, committing suicide to the survival identity, what happens is you realize it was an illusion. That's what I find amazing. And that's what I remember thinking like, oh my God, it was a lie. The whole thing was a lie. And looking back to a few years ago, you almost killed yourself over a lie. For nothing. Right? For nothing. That to me is amazing because when you're in it, it is everything and it is real. And you are in Dante's Inferno. You are in hell. This is purgatory. And that is real. But it's based on like this alternative perception that does not exist in reality. That to me is why it makes no sense. Like when people get here, when they arrive and they are conscious and aware of what it took to get here, when it is permanent, because that's the key, I think, to this sticking is the permanence and the willingness for your relationship with the body that is giving you awareness and consciousness. When you make it unconditional, and that includes it will die and you will accept that too when it comes. It's just it's amazing.
I can't hear you. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Well, basically, it's just like the switch flips. Bing! Yeah. All of a sudden, you're like, the world is magnificent.
Yeah, the darkness has just lifted.
Yeah, and why would you go backwards? That's what I was gonna say. When you get there,
oh God.
It's
I don't
like
ever want to go back there again.
And to see that it's a choice. It's a choice. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I choose not to go back there.
Well, you not only choose, but it doesn't make sense anymore because you recognize that the willingness to surrender. And what I learned is that coming out of that is as things arise, you surrender them as they arise. You don't wait for yourself to suffer to surrender it.
Right.
Something that arises, I surrender it before it even gets anywhere. So I just don't attach. So, for example, as I move forward, as I experience life and its changes. So, like I'm writing this book that will hopefully be published in the next few months. I surrender everything as it's occurring so I can write it authentically. So I surrender to the fact that it's not going to be well understood. I surrender to the fact that it's going to be criticized by science. Anything possible. I surrender that people will think it's a shitty piece of work. That my writing is going to be terrible. That how I'm explaining it is insufficient. Like I'm going into it I am surrendering to the infinite possibility. I'm also surrendering any benefits of it as well, because I'm not doing it for that reason. So this could change my career path into being a public speaker. I surrender that. Right? So I don't want to be attached to any outcomes in any way. That way I can, so the benefit for me is that I'm expressing it right now. And that's truly all I am getting from it. Because I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to write a book unless it does something for me. I'm human. So what am I?
Right.
What is it doing for me?
You should get joy from it, whatever that is to you.
Well, what it is.
Just releasing it or whatever.
As it's occurring. Correct. So you see how I've learned in my own recovery process that I will stay intrinsic with it, and when it's over and done and complete, it's over and done and complete. The outcome is not my business. I don't care. I'm not attached to that. I have nothing to do with its outcome. All I'm involved in is the actual moment, the feeling forms in my space, and I have words that I use to describe it, and then I type it on this computer, and that's what I get out of it. And it's the joy of getting it out. That's how I felt about Weight Loss Apocalypse. I just want this out. I'm done talking about it. I'm done thinking about it. I'd like to get it in a form of expression, and from there, people can do what they want with it. I don't even care.
Well, I guess for you too, you knew that that's what saved your life, and it was just a matter of putting it out there, like you said, just for your own benefit, not because you thought you were going to make millions off of it, or you just needed to do it for your own survival.
Yeah, and actually,
or whatever.
Well, and when I recovered, I remember at the time, because it is so like, what the hell just happened to me? And this was all a farce. This was a lie. I knew there were millions or hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people suffering the way I was for an illusion that it was fake. And I had this burning feeling inside of me that I wanted people to know. But I remember immediately thinking, I had that feeling, and the next feeling was, that might not be my role. So all I know is that whatever this was for me, it may have been very sacred and personal. Didn't need to be expressed. And I remember, I don't know why this is making me emotional, but I remember feeling at peace that if it is meant to be that I'm to express this and to explain it to someone, it will come to me. I will not make it happen. And that's what happened. I didn't intend to get a YouTube channel and I'm going to talk about my recovery and I'm going to work with people who have eating disorders. That is not how this happened. It started with, here's this HCG protocol, and wow, I'm watching these people and I can see what they're doing, and oh my God, I know exactly what they're doing. I've done that, and I just started to help them process through things. And all of a sudden I'm writing a book, and I'm like, oh, you know what? It would probably help people if I recorded these conversations. Maybe it will help others who are processing the same way. So I'll just throw some YouTube videos out there. So my point is that you learn to not control anything. Doesn't mean you don't have an idea and you don't follow through with it. Doesn't mean that you don't aspire for anything. Just means that you realize that you don't need whatever you're aspiring to, which allows it to happen. If it does, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't happen. So you stay unattached to it. and you're living in a constant state of joy.